It's a pleasure to be here with you folks tonight, and I thank you for the invitation to come. And it's a big state, and I know Michael feels the same way. We wish we could be in more places than we can, but we're limited by finite amounts of time and resources. But it's really great to be here with you, and I echo Michael's sentiments. We've talked openly about this, and we'll support whichever guy wins the primary, because it is our primary objective to defeat Maria Cantwell and replace her with a Republican. We will support our Republican president so that we can get America's work done.
Yes.
I live in Shoreline, just north of Seattle. We used to be part of Seattle, but about 15 years ago the city separated over the issue of schools, and it was probably a good decision because the Shoreline schools have fared much better than the Seattle schools under different leadership. I am not a politician. I'm a medical doctor, small business owner, family man. I have two daughters, ages 11 and 14. We just completed the third year in which we homeschooled our daughters, we being my wife and I. We've been married now 17 years. We just celebrated our 17th anniversary in June 10th, a month ago. So we take education very seriously, but more importantly than education, we take raising our children seriously, education only being a part of that, as you know, formal education. And we realize that government does not have the answers to most of our problems. All we can really expect of our government is to provide an environment of law and order where everybody has to play by the rules or face the consequences. And a government that doesn't guarantee outcomes, it just guarantees opportunity. Because when our government begins to try and guarantee outcomes, in other words, we're all the same. We all have the same house, the same car, the same whatever it is. We all live 82.3 years. We're all 170 pounds if we're men. We're all 130 pounds if we're women. You know, come on, folks. We're all different. We have different ambitions in life. We live in different parts of the country. We shouldn't all be the same, should we? In fact, we don't want to be. In fact, the beauty of America, one of the beauties, is that we're all very different. We're a very pluralistic society, and that is good. That makes America a rich, vibrant place. So why should we want everybody to be the same? Well, the problem is we're dealing with progressivism that says we should all be the same. And it's government's job to make sure that we are. And the only way the government can do that is to take and take and take. It takes everything we earn, it takes all of the control for us, and it makes all of the decisions for us. Folks, that's not what we want. We're here to push back. We're here to say we're the land of opportunity. And we want to give every American full opportunity to be the person that he or she wants to be, and to stand or fall on his or her own merits. And that's the way it should be, folks. And we're not seeing that anymore, whether it's healthcare, whether it's economic issues, whether it's education, whether it's how we manage our land, whether it's our tax code. We're seeing the opposite of what we believe in. We're seeing a progressive expansion of government that just wants to take it all and take full control. I was at a Seattle Times interview this week, and the reporter just was talking to me extensively about healthcare, since I'm a medical doctor. And she said, now Dr. Coday, she was frustrated with my answers because I wasn't giving an inch to her on Obamacare. She obviously supported it. She said, Dr. Coday, isn't healthcare a right? And I knew that was a trap, because she wanted me to say it was not a right, so she could label me as some sort of a villain. What I did was this. I said, I'm not going to answer that question directly, but let me say this. If healthcare is a right, that means it is an obligation to somebody to provide it. And I said, the problem is, if people want the government to provide everything for them, their education, their healthcare, their housing, their food, they're going to have to give all their money and all the control to the government. They're going to lose all of their freedom and all of their choices. On the other hand, if people are willing to take personal risk and responsibility, those things won't be guaranteed, but they'll have more freedom, more choices, and they'll keep more of what they produce. I'm not sure she liked that answer, but that's the answer that she got. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a medical doctor. I was born in South Carolina, but my father was U.S. Navy. He was a Commodore, which is a one-star admiral, essentially. And he was in command of anti-submarine warfare for the Pacific Fleet. And we ended up moving around quite a bit 13 times in 11 years, according to my mom, and she would know. And we came here when I was 8 years old and settled in the area. And this has really been my home since 1971 at the age of 8. And so I grew up in the Northwest. I love Washington State, and I love our country. And I grew to love my country for my dad, who fought for our country. He was in the end of World War II. He was in the Korean conflict. He was on one of the ships that was part of the blockade of Cuba. He was also involved in the Gemini and the Apollo space programs and the recovery of the space capsules. And a man I admire very greatly, my father. And he taught me to love this country. And so I'm running for office, even though I'm a medical doctor, because I realize we're in trouble. I realize that career politicians, Republican and Democrat alike, have put their careers ahead of you, the people. Okay? They are so tied up, bound, gagged, and shackled and leashed with all of their commitments to their special interests, to their campaign funds, to getting reelected. They do not have the ability or the courage to do what really needs to be done in America. I'm not running because I want this job. I'm running because I want to do this job. Those are two entirely different things. I not only don't want this job, I want to stay a doctor. I love practicing medicine. I'm passionate about it. I wanted to be a doctor since I was that high. And went to the University of Washington for my undergrad degree, went to Harvard Medical School, and I love what I do. And the hardest decision I had to make to run for U.S. Senate was, if elected, I will essentially have to give up the practice of medicine. I want to do the job of the practice of medicine, but I want to serve my country in the way that my father did, not necessarily in the armed forces, but I want to serve. I want to make a difference. I want it to be better for you and for your children and your grandchildren and for posterity into the indefinite future. And that's why I'm running, folks. And I'll tell you about my core values. Very conservative, very Republican. I love this country, its declaration, its constitution, its history. I am pro-life. I am the only U.S. senatorial candidate in this race endorsed by Human Life PAC in Washington. Life begins at conception, ends at natural death. I will proactively protect human life, and we do need a constitutional amendment at the end of the day. And I will talk about the issue, because when we're losing 1.4 million people annually to abortion in this country, and we can't afford Medicare or Social Security, not because of the baby boom, that was a few million people. It's because of the 40 or 50 million people that are not here because of the Holocaust of abortion on demand, folks. This is an economic issue. It is the biggest economic issue this country faces. China faces it even worse. They're going down hard. Now be careful about investing too much in China. Japan faces it. Europe faces it. Canada faces it. This is bad news. And if anybody says it doesn't matter, they're not paying attention. I support marriage between a man and a woman at the federal level, and I can explain that for those of you who want to know. I support your Second Amendment right, and I've got flyers that details my statement on your right to defend yourself. So, that's just a preview. I'd love to talk to you about health care. I want to repeal Obamacare. I believe I'm uniquely qualified to get it repealed. I believe Democrats are going to come running to me. They're terrified, I believe, of the implementation of the individual mandate in 2014. So that people who could never afford health insurance won't be able to in 2014. It'll be even more expensive. Only to add insult to injury, they'll get a tax penalty. And I think the Democrats who voted for it are running scared. They can't come out and say repeal the bill because they pushed so hard for it, but like Nancy Pelosi, they had to pass it to find out what was in it. They need a Republican who has the credibility of being a Medicare, Medicaid, uninsured kind of a doctor who sees those patients to come forward, reach out to them and say, well, let's fix health care. We'll start by repealing the bill, but we'll get it fixed. Finally, thank you for the opening prayer. You know, I don't have all the answers. No human being does, and I don't pretend to. This country's history was founded on men and women who looked to God for the wisdom, and that's exactly what we need to do. We prayed for wisdom tonight. I believe God will grant wisdom, and that's what we need, because we don't have all the answers, do we? Thank you.